Welcome, everyone. Come on in, grab a seat. I always have to be corny, I'm sorry. We'll just give it a few seconds to let people in, and then we'll get started. Give it 5 seconds. All right, well then let's get started. Welcome, everyone. This is the third and final webinar of the series for our 2024 AIA Austin Homes Tour. I'm so glad you can join us. We're calling this one loosely themed Empty Nest Full of Fun for these 3 houses: the City Park Residence by Alter Studio Architecture, the Daniel Drive Residence by Clark Richardson Architects, and the Post Oak Residence by Fab Architecture. I want to start out by thanking our sponsors. Oops, I skipped one. Our title sponsor, Intention Construction and Purpose. Thank you so much, Intention, for sponsoring the tour this year, the 38th tour. I want to thank our underwriters for these 3 houses: Brunkenhofer Construction, Design Ecology, Diggs Handyman Fence, Fern Santini, Rouser Construction, Christinic Flooring, Ingrained by Nature, J&W Hardware, and Studio Marchant. And our gold sponsors: Austin Concrete Development, Austin Iron, Barrett Flooring, Drop House, Element 7 Concrete or NARI, Hawker Design, the Reeves People, Western Window Systems, and Quantum Windows and Doors. Thank you so much to our amazing sponsors who make this tour possible. I want to also thank very much our amazing committee chairs. This committee spends the entire year working on this tour. Actually, they start in the prior year. Candace Wong has been an amazing chair, and Blake Smith, the chair-elect, will pick up the scepter and crown as chair in 2025. Thank you to our moderator, Brett Gregg. Let me tell you a little bit about Brett. Brett is an architect and the construction manager for Rouser Construction, which is a firm that specializes in building highly detailed, architecturally driven residential projects. She managed the City Park Residence, which we will talk about today, and you will see on the tour next weekend. It's also featured on the cover story of the current issue of Austin Home magazine. Prior to transitioning to the construction field 10 years ago, she practiced architecture in Austin and Baltimore. So today, our speakers are Kevin Alter. Is Ernesto and Tim gonna join you at all? No, just Kevin for Alter Studio, April Clark and Ed Richardson. And today we will not be joined by Fab Architecture principals Pam Chandler and Patrick Owsey. A very tragic and sudden loss happened last weekend. One of their team members, David Burt, who you all may know, was a wonderful, wonderful man. He passed away, and Pam and Patrick decided they probably could not hold it together to do this webinar. So Brett will be standing in for them and showing their slides and talking about the house, but you will be able to see them next weekend at the tour. So Brett, I hand it to you to introduce our speakers.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Ingrid. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our third and final webinar of this season's AIA Homes Tour webinar series. I'm excited for our conversation today, Empty Nest Full of Fun, with Kevin Alter and April Clark and Ed Richardson. Excuse me, sorry. I'm Our format today is that they will each present their projects for about 10 minutes or so. Feel free that while they're presenting, drop questions in the chat. We'll revisit the chat at the end of the presentations and have some time for a conversation. After I'll actually present Fab's project third pretty quickly, just so you guys can get a sense of how it relates to the overall conversation. So anyway, again, thank you for joining us. I'll go ahead and introduce you to our presenters. So Clark Richardson Architects is an award-winning custom residential architecture and design firm in Austin. They approach each project with a fresh eye, first understanding a client's needs and vision, then molding these ideas into elegant solutions that exceed all expectations. April Clark and Ed Richardson consider their team to be design thinkers, believing that a successful project is a collaboration with their clients and composed of the best design solutions to the questions formulated by the client's aesthetic tastes, needs, and lifestyle, coupled with the opportunities presented by the site, then choreographed with the code, budget, and the function. While they are top professionals in our field, they pride themselves on being approachable and easygoing, and they want the process to be fun, understandable, and accessible for all involved. So thank you for joining us today. We also have Alter Studio Architecture. So Kevin Alter, Ernesto Cragnolino, and Tim Whitehill are the three partners at Alter Studio Architecture. Kevin is a graduate of Bennington College and of Harvard University. He is also the Sid W. Richardson Centennial Professor of Architecture at the University of Texas at Austin, where he served as Academic Director for Architecture Programs and Associate Dean for Graduate Programs from 2001 to 2014. Alter Studio Architecture has received more than 200 design awards, including 12 national AIA awards and AIA awards consecutively for the last 16 years. Their work has been widely published, including Alter Studio Architecture, 6 Houses, from Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, as well as the recent book from Oscar Riera Ojeda Publishers, Masterpiece Series, Highland Park, Alter Studio. And then I'll go ahead and speak a little bit about Fab Architecture so you guys are familiar. Founded in 1996 by spouses Patrick Ossie and Pam Chandler, Fab Architecture has established itself as one of Austin's leading design firms. The office is committed to spirited design, integrity in construction, and efficient project management. The first designs by Fab Architecture were small-scale residential projects. Through the process of working with clients whose vision of a better living environment outstripped limited budgets, Patrick and Pam developed a keen sense of what it means for design to respond to the needs of a client and the opportunities of a site. Fab Architecture believes in the importance of collaboration with their clients, and through this dialogue, seeks to create spirited environments that integrate light, space, color, and materials into emotionally resonant architecture. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and have Clark Richardson present first. Turn over to you guys.
Great. Thank you, Brett. Appreciate that. We'll get our kind of slide presentation up. Yeah, screen two.
All right. I'm Ed Richardson. This is April Clark. We're the two partners in Clark Richardson Architects, and so we're going to talk about our Daniel Drive residence as part of the AIA Austin Homes Tour 2024.
An empty nest full of fun panel.
So we're going to start here on the just the street view of our house, and hope that we see a lot of the folks that's on this webinar come and visit us on the tour. You know, one of the unique things about this project is we had the opportunity through the builder, Bart Brokenhofer, to work with the client and actually search for the lot for this project prior to starting the design.
So we got to know the client really well, looking at properties, initial properties, and understanding what her goals were, and I think related to the theme for today. Part of that was just where she saw her life going. She's a very successful businesswoman. And she saw this home as being kind of the culmination of the things that she's collected in her life, experiences with her son and family, and bringing it all to a location that was in a vibrant part of the city. And so working with her to select the sites, we ended up on this property that is very close to Town Lake in Barton Springs, that kind of gets her close to the things that she loves about Austin and the music scene and just kind of the vibrant life that we have. So this is a photo from, or a film video from when we were doing construction and framing. It shows you kind of how close we are to downtown. That's a long center there.
Yeah, so really this was about kind of moving from maybe sort of on the west side of town to something that was very much in town. And this client has a real love for music, which I think folks will see when they visit the house. It's very much represented in the interiors and all the things on the walls. And so we felt lucky to get this lot, which is kind of amazing and walkable and right in the middle of things in South Austin. So there's kind of two ways we think about the client brief. I think the architectural way is thinking about the site and site constraints. The other side of it is the sort of art and the possessions.
I was really getting to know your client too, right? Like we kind of starting off with the client in site selection, visiting her house, seeing how she lives, seeing her collection. She has an extraordinary collection of art and just things that she's kind of collected all throughout the years. And that's kind of the process of getting to know any client, is understanding kind of what's important to them through things that they own, but also through experiences. So the time that she wants to be able to spend with family and how she lives, basically.
So some of the things we do, and we've been lucky enough to have projects like this, where especially with folks who have a lot of art, is we'll go out and catalog the sort of existing conditions. So these are actually a 3D model of all the art that she had, and we had this as almost kind of an interior sort of kit of parts that we thought about before we even put pencil to paper. And what's so wonderful about that is that as we did schematic design and all the sort of early design phases, we were thinking intimately about art and where it could go. There's a couple rooms in the house that are designed around furniture pieces, more than a couple, that sort of came on board, and that's just a really rewarding aspect to the project. To looking back at it from this point and how it kind of was realized.
Yeah, I think you'll see when you visit the home just how eclectic and how much the spaces kind of are this client. You will feel like you have gotten to know her quite well when you visit this home, which I think is extraordinary. It doesn't feel like it's a staged home. It is very much her home, and it rings true in every moment as you move through the spaces.
This is just an example of like one of the main sitting rooms in the house was designed around this painting on the left and this Vladimir Kagan couch. And so again, just really neat to be able to have those elements in place.
So these are the renderings, but you'll get to see the spaces when you come to the home.
And consider it as we start.
Yeah.
So the flip side of that is the more sort of architectural portion of what we consider the site brief. So this is a pretty sort of typical city lot. It's a 50-foot wide by 150 narrow lot. It had a very large pecan tree on the west side of the lot, and so that was kind of a design constraint. It meant that the existing driveway and the grading associated with it had to stay. So in a lot of ways that set things up in the house in terms of how we set the finished floor of the house. It was set really close to the house that had been there before. The second part of the brief that was important to the client is she really wanted something where the first floor of the house had almost everything she needed for everyday living, and that'd be on one level. The existing house, the sort of existing lot had about maybe 9-10 feet of slope up towards the back. And so very, very early on, we were considering a sort of flattening, a sort of design intent to sort of flatten the lot through a series of retaining walls. So this is showing a sort of longitudinal section, and that dashed line is sort of the existing grade. So carving out quite a bit to sort of get the house to be more of a single level house.
Yeah, and these are kind of the complexities that you balance as an architect when you meet the client. If we had infinite space, and unlimited, which is where she was coming from, this kind of suburban lot where anything is possible, and then kind of compressing that into a very urban situation where your choices are very limited. So each choice has to be precise. It has to be working with the constraints of the site while maintaining the vision of what their ultimate goals were. Especially when a client comes to us and says, they don't want, this isn't a 10-year home. She wants this home, for the rest of her life. She wants to kind of make this part of the world her own, for an extended period of time. And so each decision became very precious.
So from the street, if when folks come to visit the house, the right photo is sort of the pedestrian entry. There's a vehicle gate and a pedestrian entry that's kind of stepped up. The photo on the left is through that gate, so you're sort of down a couple feet and circumnavigating around front courtyard space, it's really neat because it's both a mix of sort of visible from the street but private because of the sort of layers of fencing and planting. And you folks will kind of walk around to this photo on the left. That's the sort of leading northwest corner of the house, which is a horizontally coursed limestone wall that's kind of taking you around to the front door.
Yeah, it's kind of grand entrance, and you come through to kind of some of the original pieces that you brought to us. This one that you see right there is Oysters by Carlos Lopez, who's a New Orleans artist, which Ed's from New Orleans, and the client also has ties back to Louisiana. So that was kind of fun to kind of pull all that together.
Yeah. Looking at this in terms of the floor plans, so there's kind of two primary entries into the house. That one sort of location we saw is the more public entrance, this sort of side entrance. There's an additional entrance that's an accessible entrance through the single car garage. But really the intent was to have this kind of central vestibule space that then have views to the north and south, views into that front courtyard that we showed you in the last couple of images, and then views south to the rear yard with a lot of transparency. And then the spaces kind of buttressing around that, the formal living room that again faces north, and then a sort of kitchen, dining, sitting area, sort of round out the public portions of the plan. At the same time, on this level, there's a sort of hallway here that's taking you from the more public spaces to the principal bedroom. So that's the sort of principal bedroom. It's really the terminus of the sort of circulation. And that then has sort of views out into the pool, which we'll show you in a minute. And that was something the homeowner was really interested in, this idea of sort of being able to be in that room, the pool going directly engaged through the exterior wall. And we'll show some more of those views. And then in a pretty efficient way, the sort of principal bath and closet and laundry are then sort of stacked in support of that.
And this is this is a view that kind of goes from where her dining and kitchen off to her private bedroom. And one of the things that was very important to this client was having opportunity to have intimate spaces where she could have a conversation with her son late at night or early in the morning, where they could, have just moments that weren't about being like in a living room with the TV. And so there's a lot of spaces that try to take advantage of the smaller, tighter space. And one of those experiences is this pool and this water and the quality of the light that can really change the way even a small space feels throughout the day. And so you can see the reflections of the water and the way the light moves through these louvers, kind of changing the way you inhabit the space.
Yeah, so the left view is that sort of hallway back to the principal suite, and you can see the sort of pool feature sort of running against that in parallel. And the right is showing the sort of exterior view of those punctuated exterior windows. This is the view all the way at the back of the space, or standing on the other side of the pool. So again, looking at that principal suite on the left, the pool wrapping around, and then there's a sort of deeper portion of the pool where the photographer is standing. And that's on the right is then looking into the sort of kitchen dining space with some outdoor gathering spaces. This is turning a little bit to the east, so we're at a sort of bridge element. There's actually a stairway that's kind of tucked in behind the house that lets second floor inhabitants come down and enjoy the pool.
So for someone staying with her, which she does often, or if she has other guests, they kind of have their own access that they can come down the backside of the house to the pool, without going through the main floor.
The second floor is really sort of a office and media room, which is off the stairs. That's this number 2 in the diagram. And then there's a really large screen porch, both of which have wonderful kind of north views to downtown Austin.
Seasonal views of downtown, so you can start to see little bits through the foliage, but it's still just lovely to be up there in the trees.
And again, along the lines of most of the house is functionally downstairs. There's a small guest suite up here, and then a sort of junior master on the second floor with ensuite. Those also with views to the south. And sort of ending here with this very generous screen porch. If you guys know us, we love doing screen porches in this farm, and so we do them over and over again in different ways. And this is one of the favorite ones I think we've ever done. This sort of big outdoor space with lots of different uses. And we'll end here on this street view.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. It is a visual feast for the senses when you go. So I hope that everybody gets a chance to go check it out on the tour. Kevin, are you ready to share?
Sure, let me. Yeah, can you see my screen, Brett?
Yep, looks great.
Great. Okay. And hopefully you can see my cursor too, if I want to point at anything. Well, thanks, Brett. Thanks. It's nice to see that as well. It's a beautiful home. So this is I guess it's a particular take on the topic. It is a house for a couple with adult children and grandchildren, and it certainly has all the accoutrements for living that make it commodious and easy to live in, you know, primarily single floor living and things like that. But it's a house that is designed really for all the best reasons and probably fits into the latter part of the title of this little webinar more than the first. It wasn't primarily about shelter. This is instead, it's really like a house that was posed for enjoyment, I suppose. The property is a family-owned property. It's been in the family for a long time and was very special, although it had not been occupied for many years. And the house was posed as a kind of legacy home that would bring the family and future generations back to this place that had been so important for this family. The clients like to tell the story of, well, depending who's saying it, the father or father-in-law scouring the hills of West Austin with a stepladder to find the best spot to build make his family home. And you know, I'm pretty convinced that he found it. And as much as when we approached this place, there was no longer a home on it, the site was pretty clear. And it's a stunning property with views up and down the river, over the Pennybacker Bridge towards the city, and also sort of in the other direction. And it had a southern exposure, and because it's quite high, almost at the top of this hill, it gets a kind of constant breeze. And while many of our projects over the years have been, I don't know, clever solutions to difficult problems, this was a site where one could really do many different things. And as I was mentioning, the house was posed as a kind of honeypot, as this sort of place that was really about reoccupying an important part of the important place for this family, and to be a place that the children would inherit and want to come back to, and would be a kind of place for all of the various lovely social occasions of living. The children who live in town are musicians, and so it's a place designed for concerts and small and large and things like that. Anyway, it's a beautiful piece of property, but I'll quickly just kind of walk us through the house. It's set up in a way quite modestly, where it appears as a single-story home. As you approach it, you meander through this beautiful landscape, and this is the way that the house appears around a couple of trees that had been there beforehand, so we were careful to maintain them. Let's see, the site plan is set up. I think you can see my cursor where visitors come this way. If for the people who live here, they bring their car around the back, so the driveway and garage is taken out of the sequence for the proper sequence for entering, and then there's a kind of circular drive and a way to get into the house. The hill, the top of the hill is really here, and it drops away pretty steeply. And as I mentioned, there were a few significant trees still in the still extant there. We kind of remade this hillside and into a kind of lush courtyard with the help of a really fabulous landscape architect, David Hawker, and his team. And one takes a bridge across this into the house that starts to unfold once one enters. This is a photo from a drone, and I guess it catches that sort of Frank Lloyd Wright thing about not building at the very top of the hill, but just under it. So it's a house as much as I know right where it is. And when I drop my daughter off for school across the river, I'm always looking for it. And it's really hard for even me to spot, which is something that we're kind of proud of, that it's not a house that shall we say, announces itself from afar, but unfolds as you live in it and occupy it. This is another aerial photograph just to give you some idea of the setting, which is pretty stunning. With a view towards the city and obviously in every direction, really. The plan is set up where it's really like on the top floor, it's set up really as a generous one-bedroom house where the main entrance, you come across a bridge, you get some idea that there's a good view because you get to see through the house. But by the time one kind of comes to the front door, one is taken away from the view and reoriented back on this really lush and fabulous courtyard, only to be reintroduced to the view when you're kind of upon it in its full glory, should we say. The public parts of the house are all in here, the kitchen, dining, living. It's set up for concerts, like smaller concerts up here, acoustically and kind of space planning wise. Obviously there's a kind of back entry from the garage that's also equally lovely, with a little kind of garden to kind of to make that entry kind of lovely as well, and generous porches to allow one to kind of enjoy the breeze. And unlike much of Boston, they are blessed with lots of breezes and hence don't have a bug problem, really. The primary bedroom suite is in here, with all of the bathroom and closets and things tucked behind. So really, this is the most extraordinary view as they go to sleep and wake up, with a couple of offices in the back that in some future incarnation might transform into children's bedrooms, and with a little wall placed here. Downstairs, there are additional bedrooms, a sort of second master suite for the children when they're here, and a kind of rumpus room that is set up with a ping pong table and things like that, that is physically divorced from the house. One has to go outside. A major part of the house is this area here underneath the main living areas that are set up like a bridge, and it's always in shade, always getting a breeze, and next to the pool. I put in this section just to give you some idea of how it's posed. As much as the house appears as a single-story house, it unfolds pretty quickly as really a bridge, a two-story house. And then this is sort of how one approaches it. So the kind of lush garden, the bridge that one crosses, this lush kind of courtyard, rushing through to keep to my 10-minute time. You get some idea that there's a pretty significant view when you're crossing, but you can tell by the time you enter the building here, you're taken away from that view, only to be given back to it later. The courtyard slips underneath the house and the landscape carries through. This is this really generous outside porch, as I said, always in breeze, always in shade. One of the kind of more difficult problems with this is having placed the house really carefully to get the best views, and to have organized it as really like a single room wide house, so that one is always in that liminal position, the position sort of between this extraordinary view that's kind of grand, and then back towards a much more intimate courtyard. There's also a desire to live outside and be in the pool, and we didn't really want to raise that on a table. So the effort to make the downstairs equally lovely, so that they can live a kind of full outside life as well, ended up turning into this really generous outside place with another kitchen and dining area. just an image to see how the landscape kind of folds through and under the house, and then some sense of this kind of cantilevered stair that helps you kind of negotiate between upstairs and downstairs. This was a shot just to show like the house is a kind of larger building on the backside. You see it with the kind of area that's bridged over the rumpus room, primary bedroom, and the living space back in here. And another image just to see how the building sort of hovers over this really lovely landscape. In the end, the primary advantage of this place is this incredible view, and we were able to pose a house that was set up where we could make significant exterior spaces that were constructed, sort of built exterior spaces that could take advantage of being in this setting. And obviously, when you have a setting like that, one wants to frame it beautifully. But in a home where so much of the emphasis was on this sort of horizontal condition of viewing out, we also wanted to frame the sky in a beautiful way. And so we've taken, in 2 instances, we've cut these holes into the roof for things that we've done things like that in the past, often to let a tree pass through or things like this. But in this way, it was both to allow breezes to come through, and which works miraculously well. It's the furniture is intentionally quite heavy. We did the interior furnishings on this house as well, working with the things that they had and then adding pieces to it. But anything lighter, I think, would have been blown away a long time ago. But it also is this beautiful framing to the sky, and then on those occasions when it rains, you get to sort of see the shape of the rain as it comes through. And then, of course, the interior spaces are set up to take advantage of this lovely condition as well. I put this image in that is sort of just when one enters, the view being to the left, the courtyard being to the right. Both are beautiful views, I should say, not just the long view. But we tried to make a building that would not just be like a great room where everything is in the same space, but where there was a desire to connect the rooms to each other, but to make each room have its own character. So this is a living room that can also be a place for smaller jazz concerts and things, that has a TV behind this panel that kind of rolls up there, but also has a big fireplace. It's connected to the dining room on the other side of this incredible stone wall. But each room has its own kind of character. There's a lot of attention paid to detail and kind of carefulness and how we worked all the systems and lighting and things like that. But the putting this in really just to get this sense that we were trying to both connect all the spaces together, but also make them each have their own character. And then this was an image of the other hole in the roof, the courtyard between the mudroom and garage and the sort of kitchen and back of house areas. That is a moment when the family is coming home, that they might have a moment of pause. I think like here's a little bench to maybe put on your house shoes, just that has a kind of change from the everyday world into your extraordinary home. I put in a couple of images just of some iPhone snapshots that my partner Tim took, just because there's this sort of, I think the way that we experience buildings is less in their larger organization, but in the intimate moments in which we come in contact with them, the moment where we kind of grab hold of a door. And so that's a special thing, the surface one walks on, and the way like shadows and light come through. Like this is that same surface in that last courtyard with this beautiful paving condition and the shadows of this slatted wall passing across, that it's something that we can kind of initiate in the world, but is really completed by the path of the sun, like that. And then the building is seen in many ways like a kind of primed canvas for the beauty of shadows. And I think shadows fall on everything, but we try and set up surfaces so that they're really that much more interesting. And then I was going to end with just coming back to this really lovely image and the thought that we don't necessarily design things for a particular function. We try and do things so that they're like an invitation to live in a way that might be generous on the one hand, but startling and wonderful on the other, and like finding a kind of use. And you know, the clients are very generous, and they have these lovely social occasions. They just had a block party for the neighbors. But at the occasion of the eclipse in Austin, they had a party. And I thought I might end on this slide with our our wonderful moderator who built this house and brought unbelievable craftsmanship to it. But her and her family looking through the hole that was set up for the eclipse in some ways. So not pre-intentioned, but I think it was a happy accident. So
You're cracking me up. That's great.
so anyway, that's our house. I hope you all come to see it. I have to say, I feel like buildings don't travel well in photographs. The best buildings are always much better in person. And I think this house is a building that is sort of revels in subtlety and nuance. And I hope that the people come and sort of see it in the kind of richer light than we have a wonderful photographer, but I think the building lives in a way that's sort of larger. So I think that's the last slide I have. The
Thanks.
best model.
That was yeah, to speak of the generosity of our clients to invite us to enjoy the eclipse, and especially all those kids are the ones who found like this is the view and invited us all up to enjoy it. So it's a great Oculus.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am going to present Fab Architecture's house. Now, this is actually the architect's own house, which makes it a fun, unique empty nest experience. So, all right, you guys can see. Okay, so the seed for this project was planted when our children went off to college. Feeling the itch for something new, we decided to sell the home we raised our boys in with the goal of building a new house to embrace life as empty nesters. Our goal was to design a home that allowed us to age in place and serve as a gathering hub for our family and friends for special occasions, but also for Sunday night family dinners. And there are the architects. We initially had planned to build on a large tree-filled property further south of us. As we began the design process, we realized how much we loved the Bolden neighborhood, our great neighbors, close proximity to downtown, and the hike and bike trails. Luckily, we had purchased an adjacent rental property on Post Oak in the early 2000s and decided to build our new home in our old neighborhood. There were two structures, a simple cottage with an accessory building in the rear, a simple cottage and an accessory building in the rear. We were able to relocate both structures with the help of the reuse people who helped facilitate finding new owners for old structures with the mission of maintaining housing and keeping it from the landfill. They helped us coordinate moving the house to San Marcos and the accessory building to Leander. So some images of the extensive process. That's amazing. Okay. Our site is typical of the Bolden Creek neighborhood, narrow and deep. Luckily, there were no significant trees to encumber our planning. The light bulb that went on that allowed us to conceive of building on this much, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to start again. The light bulb that went on that allowed us to conceive of building on this much more dense urban lot was to incorporate an elevator. It currently serves us well to get drinks to the rooftop deck, but mostly gives us solace knowing that we can grow old here too. This one revelation quickly led to us deciding to set the house to the rear setback line and create a simple, vertical, and compact form. Keeping the form and the plan simple had the built-in bonus effect of efficient construction. This allowed us to reserve our limited budget for things that we touch and interact with on a daily basis. Setting the home to the rear of the site allowed us to congregate our available land into a central courtyard. With the house facing south, we needed to address the sun by adding a deep 2-story porch with a steel louvered screen across the top third. We were able to shade the outdoor dining and the glass line during the hot summers, as well as provide privacy screening to the upstairs bedroom windows. At the south face of the courtyard sits a low-slung entry pavilion. In contrast to the massing of the house, a flat roof supported by steel columns hovers from a board form concrete wall, separating the carport from the entry, while a simple stucco mass serves to conceal a trash enclosure, provide exterior storage, and accommodate a potting bench. A covered porch stretches across the backside of the concrete wall to perch above the pool and courtyard. The courtyard is defined by a fountain-like pool, vegetated property line, and 4 central oaks that frame the entry sequence, as well as an open-air sitting area centered on the pool axis. The material palette of this home is simple and honest. Board form concrete pairs with steel and stucco on the exterior. And on the interior, walnut, steel, and plaster mix with earthen hues within a light-filled white box, all coming together in loft-like interior spaces along with interactive exterior spaces to create places for entertaining as well as contemplating. The main level is lofty, but not vacuous, with spaces defined with simple moves using programmatic elements. The appliance, wall, and stair elevator masts separate the kitchen from the entry and living areas. A simple glass bay serves to define a sitting area, while a walnut cabinet serves both the living room as well as the sunken studio space. Oops, sorry. The second floor has more defined spaces serving the private sleeping and bathing areas with a small flex space at the top of the stairs. Capping this simple volume is our rooftop deck, where winter views focus on downtown. They look forward to sharing their home and visiting with Austin's design community and design fans at the Homes Tour. So with that, I will stop sharing. It's a beautiful home. I do hope that you all are able to go visit during the tour. It makes me want to hurry up and become an empty nester so I can move on in, but no rush. All right, well, thank you to everyone. If you go ahead and turn on your cameras again, we'll get to the Q&A session. Claire, I see your hand raised. Do you mind actually typing your question in? I wish that I were more adept with Zoom interactions on webinars, but we're gonna have to go a little bit old school.
Or we got.
Oh, there you are.
For a minute, so we actually-
Kicked out
we switched computers.
Oops.
We have not taught any of the last couple minutes.
Okay. Well, please do go ahead and type in any questions you might have in the chat. But for now, I guess I was curious, just knowing that both of you were dealing with clients who have had a full career, you know, a full life, grown children, if there were any elements of the house that, you know, they really saw as superfluous at this point and like didn't want to have as a typical, like how did maybe their perspective change possibly the typical sort of functions that your more typical like clients my age might come to you with?
I think in our case, which it sounds like it possibly might be the opposite of Kevin's experience, but in our case, our client wanted to leave the large house that was out of town and come to a significantly smaller home in the city. And so she was looking to, so kind of the program that she left was the space, really. She wanted to have something that was smaller and more manageable so that she's largely living on her own. And so she wanted a space that it was all of her favorite things and moments that she could share with, you know, her son and close friends.
I think anecdotally, like an example, you know, is in the floor plan, we went back and forth a lot with the pantry. And so the pantry and the powder room were kind of in roughly the same place. And ultimately, this house doesn't have a pantry. It has a slightly bigger powder that's more generous. That we're doing kind of full height cabinets for everyday pantry
But
items.
specifically because she travels a
Right.
lot, so she's not looking to be having, like cooking a lot of large meals or having a lot of food kept in the house so I think that things like that where is when you have children in a home or you're spending more time in that as a primary residence, you might have kind of more of that function, readily available. But
It's an interesting question. I think for us, our client had a perfectly lovely home, and I think they were comfortable there, and I know that they were. And I think interestingly, they had come to a home tour some years ago, where we had a modern house on the tour, the Constant Springs house, and were just sort of enthralled, I think. And they came back, they brought their children, and were interested in the possibilities, I think, of how a new house could accommodate their current condition. And so it's certainly a little different than doing a home for a growing family. But in some ways it wasn't, because part of our program was to imagine this as a house that would be a legacy house and might at some point house people that like their children with a growing family. And so we set it up in a way that it could currently live as a sort of the primary floor could live as a kind of 1 bedroom set up with a couple of offices and things like that, but they could easily convert to children's bedrooms. um, and there weren't really a lot of compromises or things that were left out of this, in a large part because it was thought of as a family home, but it was certainly set up carefully because it's, hopefully they'll spend the rest of their lives there. And so a house that could easily accommodate them as they age. And certainly if they have, you know, um, a, disabilities at some point, there is an elevator to go down if they need it. I don't know how often it's used at the moment. In fact, I doubt they are. They are as active as I am. And they enjoy being active, I think, but it's set up to think about those things, but it wasn't, we weren't leaving things out per se that one would have, because we were imagining it as something that could have another life.
So Kevin, I heard you mention that the clients found you through Homes Tour, and it was a multi-year process in terms of design and all that. April and Ed, how did your client come to you? Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
apologize. She'd met actually the builder, and the builder had worked with Ed previously years ago, almost
Yeah, the builder and I
15
did
years
a
ago.
three-year build on a large house when I first moved to town. And so he hadn't started his business yet. I hadn't either, and we had kept in touch over the years, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, and so she found him and he brought us on and we had kind of initial conversations. And that's kind of how we first met. And so this project started the design during COVID. So it was definitely
Schematic design was right before COVID, but really the most of it got done right in the beginning
right
of
when
COVID.
shutdown happened. And so that brought, of course, its own complexities. And then we actually had a tour home that year while we were designing this house too, that I think that the client got a chance to go to as well.
That's great. Brings it all back around. Yes, this as you guys know, I was the builder for this home, and it was right. The steel went up. That was the first trade to come back onto site after the COVID shutdown. So there's a lot of sentimentality sort of on our side for how this project was sort of a refuge in a way. I mean, going to that site every day through COVID times it was not a bad thing, but we learned a lot through that, and the client patience through that was also an important thing. So
They were very patient, but they were the best. I mean, they enjoyed the whole process. Like early on, they would come and have a glass of wine on the construction site and watch the sunset. And I think they really enjoyed the process of working with you guys and us through the whole process. So it was a kind of, as much as it took a little longer because of COVID and things like that, and I suppose this is in part because they had another home to live in. They weren't anxious to get in. Well, everyone's anxious, but they didn't need to get in the way some folks need to. They could enjoy the process and enjoy seeing this thing that they'd done really just to for the pleasure of it to become a reality. So.
Kevin, you had mentioned a little bit about some thoughts of adaptability as the house maybe goes to future generations. If you can talk a little bit more about that, and then maybe was there any thought or consideration on that on your project as well, or even just some aging in place thoughts?
Sure. I mean, I mentioned when I was going through the plan on ours that the current configuration has a kind of private wing and a more public, like one part of that sort of C, the bit on the right, the east side, and it has a couple of offices that were set up so that they could be secondary bedrooms. If the kind of having now done a lot of houses, we have the experience where when we have people come to us that have very small children, inevitably the parents want them very close. When they come to us when they have teenagers, they often want them as far away as possible. And that is hard to do when one is doing like a smaller house, but in a house that's a little bit larger like this one, it's not enormous, but it's it has several bedrooms. One could actually have both. We could have the bedrooms that could be very close to the primary and also on the other side of the house. But that was a consideration. There were other considerations partially because they have older friends as well, that it certainly would be easy to negotiate with if you had some impairments. So it is all very easy on one floor. There aren't everything has a kind of generosity to it, so that someone that whatever was having an issue walking or something could easily move around it.
Were there any sort of aging in place considerations, Clark Richardson, that y'all considered, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing was really just, again, this idea. I think similar to the other houses is getting kind of all the critical elements on the ground floor, so that when she's in town, she really is inhabiting that space. And quite a bit of legwork was done to not step up towards the back of the lot to sort of level things out. So I think that ended up being really a big driver in the house, that kind of keeping it to one level. But really, yeah, just that idea that the second floor spaces, there's a couple bedrooms, there's her office, there's spaces she uses, but they're not kind of the critical core, parts of her everyday needs.
Yeah, for us, we
okay.
set the floor level so that when we come right, we knew right where the floor level would be, so it would be right at the kind of entry height, and the garage and all of that. And then to find the best view, it was really just a question of sliding the room back and forth until we found the ideal spot. So it wasn't going to go up and it wasn't going to go down. It was going to stay right at that level.
But there were some surprise views too. It was like everyone is so focused on the downtown view that once we were able to build up that main level and walk all the way out, there was a realization that you could see all the way to Lake Travis the other way. So there's sort of 270 degrees, and that was a happy accident there. Or maybe I would say nothing's an accident at Alter Studio, but a happy surprise.
It was unexpectedly
stunning.
Yeah. Well, a little bit like your family watching the eclipse. I mean, we thought it was special to frame the sky, but we hadn't in fact anticipated an eclipse. So, but it found a pretty good spot to see it through.
Yeah. Well, I wish we had some more questions in the chat, but it's kind of a quiet group today, and that's okay. Thank you again for your time. If there's nothing else that you want or need to share, I really appreciate y'all taking the time to present your projects. And I encourage everyone to get out and see both of these projects, as well as the Fab Architects House. Actually happens to be just behind the Daniel Drive house, so it's kind of a twofer. And I hope that you all enjoy. Thank you again, Ed, April, and Kevin, for your time.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I mean, it is. It's a chicken and the egg kind of condition. I mean, I feel like the level of particularly residential architecture in Austin is extraordinary. I don't know any other city in the country really that has this level of design. And I think that what do they say about all boats rise with the same tide? I mean, the AIA has been doing this amazing tour for many, many years, and I feel like it's It has raised the ambitions of the public, pushing architects to do better and better buildings, and it's always a pleasure to be part of it. And it's also worth saying, like, all of the homeowners, it's a very generous thing to open your home to so many people, and
Absolutely.
remiss for not thanking them for that faith and generosity towards us and towards the public to share them.
It's very well said. Thank you, Kevin. All right. Well, we'll see you in a week and a half.
Yeah.
Ready or not. Very good.
Yep.
Thank-
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.